Good afternoon. Well, this is probably going to be a bit of a quick one. Been held up today, not got out till late afternoon, and I've only got an hour or so of daylight left, so not ideal. But on a recent video when I was doing tarp setups with the 3x3, a guy called Dan commented and asked if I could do something similar with the military British Army Basha. Yes, I can. I'll try and do that now. There will be some differences because, of course, the 3x3 being square, it's easy. The Basha is not, because it's not square. Now, let me fish in my pocket. I did write down the dimensions. I've got the MTP, the later one, so this colour, and it's 2.5 metres by 2.1 metres roughly, or 8 foot by 7 foot ish in old money. That's what I'm using. If you've got an older one in the DPM, I believe, not certain because I haven't put them side by side, but I believe that is slightly smaller. I had a quick look online and I think that is only 2.25 long as opposed to 2.5. So only 25 centimetres shorter, but you know, it's nearly a foot. It could make a bit of a difference with some of these setups. Same width though, roughly 2.1 metres for the old DPM. But we'll see how we get on. This is for you, Dan. I hope this answers some of your questions, or at least give you some ideas. Now, because of time constraints, I'm not going to go full setup on all of these. I'm going to just do a few shapes, bring you in when I've done them, rough explanation how to do it, my personal pros and cons for each shape. Well, that's the plan. Right, let's get on. Right, simple lean-to. Everybody's seen it, everyone's done it. Very underrated shelter though. Ridgeline, shoulder high, prusik knot each end, stretch it out. I would normally run the line through the other bits as well, but I'm in a hurry, so you wouldn't normally have that gap. Actually gives you a lot of space. You can put a guy line on the back and pull it out to do that, or have a stick under here if you wish. Laying in the back, plenty of cover. It's high enough that you can sit up in it as well, as long as the wind, rain, whatever is obviously coming from the back. Very underrated. Make a small modification to this. It's not very often I use this setup, but I use the next one more often, and it's only slightly different. So, quick change. I'll bring you back in a second. Right, a lean-to, but with a porch. I've just dragged it over the ridge line to the first grommet and put on the prusik knots there. Obviously still the same length, but you've now got the porch at the front. If the weather's crappy, that'll keep most of it out. You can use ordinary guy lines in the front. I've used bungees this time round just for speed. Bungees are brilliant for this sort of setup. Well, for most setups really, very convenient. They grip to the trees nicely. One word of caution, because they're under tension and they've got the metal hooks on the end, when you disconnect them, it's always better to disconnect from the top of the bungee as opposed to down at the peg end, because if you let go of it and it twangs away, which has happened on several occasions, at least if you're unhooking here, it twangs at the floor. If it unhooks at the peg end, you can get a twang in the face, which isn't pleasant. So yeah, unhook at the highest point first, and at least it'll be heading towards the ground with some energy. We don't want no injuries. Right, that's that one. What can we come up with next? Simple plough point. only need one tree, of course, and it's quick and it's easy. I've just wrapped the bungee, I don't know if you can see from that angle, just wrapped it round the tree so it grips both hooks into one of the corner eyelets, staked out the far corner, pulled out the sides. But again, because it's not square, this side is longer than that side. But you could sleep down that side fine and stay in the dry and just put your gear on the short side. I've done it relatively high, so I could sit this end, still be under cover, do some cooking or whatever if I wanted to, and be in the dry. If you wanted a slightly longer sheltered area for sleeping, you could just come down the tree. I mean, I've gone about shoulder high here. If you come down to about chest height, you get a longer covered area, but of course less room to work in, and it means a bit of crawling in and out which isn't always the best of bet, especially when you get a bit older, I know. What else can we do? How about what I would term as a flying A-frame? I've used this quite a lot. Good amount of coverage. Fine if it's raining. Not quite so hot if it's windy and wet, because of course the gap all around. Get a lot of wind under it, can blow the wet under it. But if it's just normal rain, should we say straight down rain as opposed to getting blown everywhere rain, works absolutely fine. And with the added advantage, when you are laying in here, you still got 360 view all round. Brilliant. Works really nicely. Simple ridgeline, shoulder high, prusik knots to pull the top out, bungee on each corner. Of course you can use guy lines or whatever you fancy, but as I said before, bungees today for a bit of speed. For this shape and this size tarp, this is probably my preferential setup. You can A-frame on the floor with one of these, which is absolutely fine. Great for keeping the weather out, but it has its restrictions. I'll drop it down low and I'll sort of explain what I mean. Standard A-frame on the floor. Pretty stealthy. I know it looks a bit saggy. You know, it's because I'm rushing. Really, halfway point wants to be pegged out either side as well to pull it out just on the corners. But as you can see, even me squatting down, it's pretty low. It's about, well, it's below belt height, not quite thigh height, crutch height, shall we say, for want of a better description. Great stealthy turnout, good for keeping the weather out. I actually did this a few months ago, and as a shelter from the weather, works brilliant. But I was using a bivvy bag. You want to try getting in and out of a bivvy bag with this limited amount of headroom when you want to pee at 3 o'clock in the morning because you had too much beer. It's a struggle. It's okay, but the flying version with the extra height is so worth doing. Right, while we're down low, I think I can get away with just one more before it gets too dark. Let's get on. Right, still standard A-frame this end. Gone a little higher, not a lot. So we're a bit higher here, sides in slightly, a little bit more headroom. I've used the end loop and I've gone through the halfway, the mid loop on the ridge line. And then the last loop is pegged to the floor. Gives you a lot more weather protection. It's still long enough to sleep in. Obviously the far end where it's pegged down, your feet are going to have to be there because there's no headroom. But it gives you the length and a lot more protection if the weather's coming in that direction. I'll pick the camera up and move you around there. excuse the wobbling. There, so that's the back. So here's the halfway point. Second half, just pegged to there. Peg the corners. Good amount of width. Obviously there's no headroom or anything here, but it'll do for storage. There's room obviously for your feet, that end, and you've still got a good 6 foot, 6.5 foot through centre. Well, that's about it for today. I'm running out of time. I've just looked back at some of the footage and we're having a few issues with focusing and lighting and so on. It's just getting a little bit too dark for what the camera is capable of doing. I could probably come up with a few more, but off the top of my head in a short space of time, this is it. If you want to see any of these in more detail, drop it in the comments, and I can always do a full setup video of one particular shape if that's what you want to see. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. I hope that's helped Dan and give you a few ideas. You've probably seen them all, maybe, who knows, but that's what I can come up with off the top of my head. Thanks, guys. I'll see you on the next one.